Hello, I'm Michael Parker, and welcome to episode 32 of Antidote. Today we're going to be talking about one of the greatest minds of all time, a person that the modern world owes a great debt to. He was enigmatic, he was brilliant, and unfortunately, at the end of his life, he died penniless and alone. This great man was the scientist Nikola Tesla. Today we're going to be joined via Skype by director Joseph Sikorski. He is the creator of a new film, Tower to the People, Tesla's Dream at Wardenclyffe Continues. It has its Los Angeles premiere this week at the Crest Theater in Westwood. I will be in attendance, so maybe I will see you there. Joseph, welcome to Antidote.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Well, I'm really excited to see the film. Like yourself, I am a Tesla enthusiast, and I've been doing some research again for the show, and you recently called yourself, in another interview, a Tesla activist who's also a filmmaker. Let's talk about that. Why did you find it important to be a Tesla activist?
Well, I think Nikola Tesla, his research offers solutions for a lot of the problems we experience today in things like energy and communications, and by vindicating his struggle and kind of restoring his reputation, perhaps we can take some of those avenues and pursue that research.
You also mention in the film, well, a couple of people say this, and it's hard to believe, but it is true, that people still do not know who Nikola Tesla is. So for those who do not know who Nikola Tesla is, tell us who he is and what his importance to our modern world is and some of the things that he created.
Well, the most important thing is the polyphase system of electricity and the induction motor. Without that, we would not have electricity for the masses. It would only the very wealthy would have been able to afford electricity if Edison's DC current and that system had taken root. But aside from that, he invented so many things that he never got credit for, like radio. He's the true father of radio. X-rays, remote control, robotics, microwave oven, so many different things. Even the fundamental component of computers today is based on this circuit board called the logic A and D gate, and Nikola Tesla pioneered that for his teleautomaton, which was this remote control boat that he built back in 1898. So he created so many things. He didn't get a lot of credit for it. People stole from him, people marginalized him, and he really sacrificed everything to move us into the modern age. So he really needs to be vindicated.
The story of Nikola Tesla is such an unusual story because clearly this was a man that, to say he's brilliant is an understatement. I mean, this is potentially one of the greatest human minds of all time. And yet, he died alone and penniless. Let's start with his birth. I mean, even his birth is steeped in legend, because I've heard the story that he was born around midnight and there was a lightning storm. Is that true? And if so, tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, it might be apocryphal, but it is a very interesting story, and it makes a point. Tesla always spoke himself about being born at the stroke of midnight, so he always celebrated his birthday on both July 9th and 10th. The story is that the nursemaid there who was delivering Tesla said, oh, he's going to be a child of the storm, because there was this big lightning storm going on at the time he was born. And his mother said, no, a child of the light. And it's a beautiful way to introduce Nikola Tesla to the world, symbolically and metaphorically. Whether it actually happened, I'm not sure, but it's nice to think it did.
It's a great story. He was born in Croatia to Serbian parents, and his father was an Orthodox priest?
Correct.
Which is interesting. And I sometimes wonder, if part of the fact that he was Serbian is part of the reason that he has gone somewhat under the radar, not to make a pun, but in American history. But, when he came to America, I mean, his genius was noticed early on. I mean, he carried a letter when he came to the U.S., I believe, to go to Thomas Edison's workplace. Let's talk about his relationship with Edison, because you can't talk about Tesla without the relationship with Edison.
Right. Charles Batchelor had written the letter for him, a letter of introduction, and something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, I know two great men, You're one of them, and the other stands before you now. His name is Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla tried to show Thomas Edison that he had invented the impossible, an induction motor that runs on alternate current electricity, which was thought impossible at the time. But Edison was so steeped and had so much money invested in DC power that he really wanted nothing to do with alternate current. So he let Tesla know that. But Tesla also noticed that Edison's plants were not running very efficiently. Edison conceded that was a problem, and Tesla promised to be able to make it run at 90% more efficiency. Edison allegedly promised him $50,000 if he could make that happen. So Tesla worked round the clock, very brilliantly, received several patents while he was doing this work in the field for fixing these dynamos, and he did do as he had said he would, and he went to collect his $50,000. And Thomas Edison had said to him, apparently you don't understand our American sense of humor. So he did not give Nikola Tesla the money he had promised him. Tesla resigned. Edison tried to coax him back by giving him a small raise, and Tesla wanted nothing to do with it. Tesla was a man of immense pride, and he quit. Sadly, even though he made these great strides in the field while he was there, he couldn't find work. The only work he could find was digging, ditches. And, in the ultimate of ironies, what was he digging ditches for? It turns out they were for Edison's electrical mains. So, you can't even make this stuff up. It's just such a cruel and bitter irony that has plagued Tesla since he first got here to America.
It is amazing, and the fact that Edison stiffed him for the 50K is just, it's horrible, and it's kind of emblematic of what would go on to occur with Tesla throughout his life. But he goes on to make his own way, and he leaves to do his own work. Kind of walk us through what his next decade or so, what he was doing after that.
Well, to really simplify it, Westinghouse finally came along. George Westinghouse he made his fortune inventing the railroad air brake, and he had a dream of electrifying the country. And he basically leased Tesla's patents, and they were going to bring alternate current electricity to the whole world, to the whole country, not just the rich. So Tesla signed up with him. And they had a contract where Tesla would be paid you get a royalty for every horsepower generated, something like $2.50 or $2.25, for that. And this is when the War of the Currents began. This is when Edison went head-to-head with Westinghouse and Tesla to try to get the respect and the support of the American public for which electricity system would be implemented. This is where Edison and his propaganda minister, Professor Brown, started electrocuting animals, saying alternate current is very dangerous, and if you bring it in your house, this is what's going to happen. And he would electrocute dogs, even an elephant at Coney Island he electrocuted to show the danger of alternate current. But what Tesla's system had that direct current didn't have is alternate current was much more efficient. Tesla invented the whole transformer system and polyphase system so they could step the electricity up, the voltage up, send it great distances, and then step it back down with the transformer. Whereas DC, if you had too much power on one end, it would blow the stuff at the other end out, or if you didn't have enough power, it wouldn't work. So it was really not very efficient. You would need giant copper cables, very expensive, and you'd need a power plant every half mile or so. So it was really very obvious, the system that could work. And that's why the rich were the only early adopters of electricity when it was running on the DC system, because it was very expensive to provide. But Tesla and Westinghouse, this battle sort of crested at the Columbia Exposition, which was this giant World's Fair type event that happened in 1893. And it wanted to show the city of the future, the city of lights. It wanted the White City. And it was going to be the first demonstration of a city run on electric power. And this is where Westinghouse and Tesla prevailed. They won the contract. They lit the Columbia Exposition. not only did they light it, but they powered the trolleys. It was really so far superior to DC. And one interesting story is a young Frank L. Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz. He was a young kid in the audience when they lit up the city for the first time, and that was supposedly his inspiration for the Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz. So it's kind of an interesting note. So after that, after Tesla and Westinghouse had proved themselves there, it was on to Niagara Falls, where they won that contract. And after that, alternate current was pretty much, the standard. But there is one very important thing that happened during that War of the Currents. And Edison was really playing very dirty, and they were driving Westinghouse to bankruptcy. And Westinghouse could not afford to keep fighting Edison and to keep paying Tesla the royalty. So what did Nikola Tesla do? He ripped up his contract so Westinghouse could continue the fight with Edison. Now that contract would have made him the world's first billionaire, billion with a B. Instead, he died penniless in the New Yorker hotel. So it's a very tragic story. He sacrificed everything he had to help humanity advance, and this is how he ended up. And it's just not acceptable.
You're right. It is not acceptable, and it is a story that I think his time is finally coming, because you look in pop culture and, people, well, let's put it this way. I know in your film that Penn Jillette, the famous magician, kind of makes a remark that, when you start, his problem with Tesla is the woo-woo factor, that the nuts come in. But on the other hand, that's a double-edged sword, because I think a lot of people find out about Tesla through some of those initial fringe stories, and certainly it's appealed to people like Jack White, the rock musician, Christopher Nolan, the filmmaker. I mean, he had David Bowie play Tesla. So I think that Tesla is beginning to capture the imagination, as he should, of artists and great thinkers. And I know that's part of your mission, is to continue to spread the story of Nikola Tesla and the things that he's done for the world to the populace.
Yeah, and he is creeping into the culture, and I am one of those people that was interested in the fringe part of Tesla. That's how I discovered Tesla. But as I learned more about Tesla, what he, what was documented that he did, and the stuff that was documented, and his patents, and all of the real scientific things, that became more interesting to me than the fringe stuff. And that's why I started getting absorbed in Tesla, and I just could not believe that I had never heard of this person throughout my whole educational system. So, I think it is a double-edged sword, like you said. Some of the fringe and perhaps the overly zealous Tesla enthusiast might hurt his credibility somewhat, which, is part of the reason why his research isn't more accepted and pursued. So we try to take, the straight scientific approach to Tesla. And, there's room for, all kinds of different theories in Tesla, but we pretty much stick to, the stuff that has been documented.
Understood. I want to talk about, obviously, the tower, but before we get to the tower, let's talk about his laboratory in Colorado and what he was doing there, because it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was quite a place. He was creating man-made lightning. It was something that no one had ever done before. I mean, it was so. The whole place was charged that supposedly when people walked, there would be electric snaps under their feet as they walked, and that the butterflies glowed, and it was really probably where he got his reputation of being a mad scientist. But it was all very valid research he was doing. He was resonating the Earth, and he was learning how to send electric power wirelessly.
It's amazing. And I mean, he was so far ahead of his time, and he was clearly a visionary. I mean, he was one of the first environmentalists. But I just remembered, you know what? I want to show the trailer to the folks out there. And this movie has its LA premiere this Friday night. Like I say, I'm going to be there. I'm looking forward to it. Let's bring up that clip. We're going to show you a portion of it. And this is Tower to the People. Tesla's dream at Wardenclyffe continues.
Who is Tesla? I have not a clue. Is he German? Tesla? I have no idea.
Who? Tesla, the one behind me?
Tesla is one of those people that he gave us a lot and we gave him pretty much nothing.
He was a visionary about things which largely turned out to be true.
I mean, he had ideas so much bigger and larger than the sort of narrow-casted ideas that drove Edison. I mean, he almost made us think of science as kind of wizardry and magic.
Wardenclyffe, he understood, would change the very nature of how we deal with the world.
He had the belief that he would be able to transport energy from Wardenclyffe to Europe directly, without wires. It was a dream based in reality.
Wardenclyffe is a kind of cathedral. It's a monument.
It's a symbol of someone trying to do something great for all the right reasons to bring about world community.
That was a clip from Tower to the People, Tesla's dream at Wardenclyffe Tower. I'm sorry, Wardenclyffe Continues. It's going to have its LA premiere this week. Joseph, I know this, in some ways, this was a film within a film because you started your Tesla work, a couple of decades ago, and I believe that 15 years ago you started a different film, which was a narrative piece. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it was called Fragments from Olympus.
And this film, well, actually, Fragments from Olympus, you were doing that. Tell us why you were doing that.
Well, we're trying to raise awareness of the property, Wardenclyffe, which is where Tesla hoped to send free wireless energy to the whole world for free. And that property is right in my backyard. It's in Shoreham, New York. And for years, the property was decaying, and we wanted to save it. The only problem was most people never heard of Nikola Tesla in the community. And because of that, they didn't see the value of it. So we thought, we have a background in cinema, and we thought if we make a movie about who Tesla is, we will show everybody how important he was and how important this site is. And they'll see the value of it. So that's how we started with Fragments from Olympus. We included money in the budget to donate to the Tesla Science Center, which is the nonprofit organization that has been doing such great work to try to preserve the property. And we had the funding, but it fell through, sadly. But that's where, thank goodness, Matthew Inman, the Oatmeal, stepped up and started this great campaign, a crowdfunding campaign that united the whole world. And $10 at a time, they were able to put the money together to buy this property, to show the world that the place mattered. And it really is very inspirational. And that's why it's called Tesla's Dream at Wardenclyffe Continues. The whole movie, it talks a little bit about Tesla's life, but it really focuses on his greatest, most ambitious experiment for humanity at Wardenclyffe.
Let's talk about this property because after he never finished the tower, and eventually the property was bought by another company who, I guess, polluted the place terribly. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it became a whole series of different manufacturing plants, and it passed to Peerless Photo and AGFA, and they were photochemical companies, and they poured a lot of the chemicals down the tower shaft, the big hole in the ground, and they contaminated the property. And they were responsible for fixing it, and they did do the cleanup. So kudos to that part. I mean, after the damage was already done, but then it really is kind of an irony because while the property was contaminated, it couldn't be sold. So it sort of, in a weird way, saved the property from being turned into a strip mall or something. And once the cleanup was done, it went up for sale. There was an interested buyer, and that was right at the time where our funding fell through. And fortunately, the Oatmeal, someone contacted the Oatmeal, and he started this unbelievable crowdfunding campaign that just saved the day. It was really, really amazing.
Well, and you contributed quite a bit of money to that as well yourself.
Yeah, well, we wanted to support, the effort to save the lab, and it's always the important part was always save. You got to save the property before anything, because if that goes, what total tragedy it is. So, that was the most important thing. And we felt very bad that, that the Tesla Science Center was counting on us, and then our money fell through too. So we wanted to give what we had. So, but it was really, there were some great angel investors that came along, like the Tallies, who own a Dino hotel in Colorado. There's a piece on them in the film, and an angel investor from Europe, Dusan Stojanovic, he stepped up and donated a ton of money. But in the end, it was the people, $10 at a time, that saved Wardenclyffe. It really is a beautiful, symbolic way it was saved, because Tesla not only invented the logic A and D gate, but the concept of what the internet is. I mean, he wanted to connect the whole world with pictures, information, and communications, and that pretty much is the internet. And it was the internet that rallied to save his last lab. So it's kind of that's a nice irony. A lot of bitter ironies in Tesla's life, but that's one that that we can be proud of as a people.
I agree, and I think it's admirable what everyone did to help resurrect this. Now, tell me a little bit about the tower itself, because it was such an iconic and statuesque thing. He has this. If we could show a picture of the building and the tower. Okay, so there's this one-story red brick building. I'm assuming it's one story, and then the tower itself was 180 feet tall. How far did he get in the building of this whole complex?
He got pretty far. He was only the only thing that had to be done with the tower was it was going to have a coating on the cupola, and the wood beams were going to be covered. So he was very, very close. By covering the cupola, he was going to help retain the charge better. So that was very important, and for safety reasons, it was very important. So that he was very, very close. He was only $75,000 to $100,000 away from finishing it. And the building is, just to go back, it is a one-story building. It does have a loft area too. So I don't know if that's considered 2 stories or one, but it's mostly, one story.
And when he was doing this, his primary source of money initially was J.P. Morgan. Is that correct?
Correct. J.P. Morgan wanted to connect the stock exchanges of the world. Some say because he would like to get some information before the closings, and so he could act on that information quicker. So he had invested in Marconi's system too. I guess he had spread his money out to different people that he thought might succeed. And when it came out that Tesla could also transmit power as well as communications, that was a big threat to his other industries, to his lumber industries, to his copper industries. The apocryphal story is, wireless power, where do we put the meter?
Right.
And, so he could not see a different business model emerging, and he was not prepared to let the business that he was working on change or transform, which is what Tesla was. Tesla was a transformative inventor.
You mentioned that Tesla thought of himself as a discoverer more than an inventor, which I think is a wonderful thought, because he's basically saying that the energy is in the universe and the planet itself, and we are simply tapping into it, which I think is a wonderful thought and very far-sighted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had so many great ideas. I look through these articles written before, in 1890, 1898, and he talked about using electricity to pull nitrogen out of the air to fertilize crops, and like all these really, he was solar power and wind power. He was so ahead of the game on all these different things. Some ideas that were just, just amazing. They're amazing to read now, and to read that they were happening at horse and buggy time is even more amazing. So, he really he looked at himself as a discoverer, that he would extract from the wheelwork of nature, renewable energy, and it's really an admirable perspective.
Agreed. And it's with Wardenclyffe Tower. Help me understand. So how this was going to work? Was he going to pull the resonant energy out of the earth and then distribute it through the top of the tower? I mean, because I know that he wanted to do this overseas and over great distances. How was it going to work?
He was actually, and this is the part that, there's a lot of misinformation out there. because Tesla did have different ways using the same apparatus to complete his circuit. But what he was talking about with his system was he was going to resonate the Earth itself. The Earth itself was going to resonate sort of like a bell when you strike it with a clapper will resonate. And he was going to send electricity through the Earth as opposed to through the ionosphere, which is another method he had discussed. But when he was building Wardenclyffe, that was he had abandoned that method. So this was ascending through the Earth. In the film, we show an example with tuning forks, and when you strike one tuning fork, how the other tuning fork, if it's in the same key or at the same resonance, tuned to the same frequency, striking one will make the other tuning fork go. And that's pretty much what Tesla, the method, simplified, was what he was trying to do.
That is magnificent. And you, I guess in the film, which I'm looking forward to seeing, you also discussed these tunnels that were beneath the complex. Were those, what were they for?
There's a lot of different theories on what the tunnels were for. The most obvious use for the tunnels and most boring use would be for drainage, because there was water in the shore area at 80 feet. So to air out and drain out the whatever moisture would accumulate around the base, you would need tunnels with ventilation. But it's also been hypothesized that he was using the aquifers underneath as sort of a resonating chamber of sorts to help him, help resonate the Earth and help the electricity, carry better. So it's, we have a couple of people like Gary Peterson has been doing great work, continuing Tesla's research, and there are so many others, the Coram brothers, and we have Sebastian White, who is a physicist at CERN. So no one knows exactly how Tesla was planning on doing it, especially since he kept so much information in his head. But from what they gather, it's still an open question exactly what the tunnels were for. But they certainly were for drainage.
I've read somewhere that he had over 100 patents, and really he could have had a lot more than that, because you mentioned radio early, and a lot of people think that the person who created radio was Marconi, when in fact the idea had been created by Tesla, but Marconi got the credit. And I believe, didn't they eventually award the patent to Tesla, or?
They did. In 1943, the Supreme Court overturned Marconi's claim. So Tesla is the accepted father of radio, but try to find a school in the United States that teaches that. I mean, even the awards for Marconi for radio, called the Marconi Awards, Tesla is still not getting the respect or the credit that he deserves.
It is unfortunate, but people like yourself are changing that. And I know that with this initial run here in Los Angeles on the 29th, I believe that you're making that Thursday open at the Crest Theater for school kids and schools to come see the film free of charge.
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's very important. I mean, part of our mission is we want to get Tesla into the classrooms, and the Crest has been very generous to work with us on this, and so we are able to allow organized school groups to come in on Thursday the 29th at 1 p.m. So if you're an administrator, or if you're a teacher or a principal, please contact us. You can contact info@teslasdream.com, and it's a great trip. It will teach your kids about science, about history, and about a responsible sense of community.
Joseph, I thank you for coming on. I think Tesla's time has finally come, be it 75 years too late, but he's a great man, an inspiring man. I mean, for the longest time, I had that photo of him at Colorado where he's surrounded by the electricity as my desktop photo, because there's very few people as cool as Nikola Tesla.
No, he does have a cool factor. He does. And, that's part that we want to bring him into the popular culture more. Sadly, we begin the film with, interviewing some people, asking them who Tesla was. And this happened just last year in New York City, outside, right in front of a bust of Nikola Tesla. And 7 in 10 people that we asked did not know who he was.
Well, we're going to change that. Joseph, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you on Friday at the film, and I hope a lot of people will go see this. It's Tower to the People. Tesla's dream at Wardenclyffe continues. So, Joseph, thank you so much. Great work you're doing, and I I think Tesla would be proud of it.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for spreading the word.
No worries. Ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 32. My name is Michael Parker. This is Antidote. And if you like what we do, show your friends, show your family, comment below. Tell us what you think about Nikola Tesla. And if you're here in LA, please go see the film. It's got a week-long premiere run. I'll see you there on Friday night. Until next week, you, me, every single one of us, we are the Antidote.